This is the Deco 640 from XP Pen. This is the thinnest pen tablet I have ever held in my hands, and it is phenomenal in terms of the overall performance from pen to tablet experience. There's a lot to unpack, but most importantly, this is something that is not going to be something I recommend, and that's simply because this is a new product. All new products that is a 6x4 aspect or dimension for the active area is always going to come out around $40 to $50. This is a very heavily competitive area, and you can find cheaper deals if you're looking for value over pen performance. Okay, so let's get started. This is super thin. I cannot fathom just how thin it is, and it's incredibly important for that because when you are drawing on such a small area to work with, your hand's never going to be completely on this pen tablet. And the higher up these pen tablets are, the more inconvenient it is. It also slopes at the edges here, so you can see that it has a nice little bevel on the edges that your hand's going to be resting on. And unlike the Deco M that I have, the gap between the sticker surface and the edging here is flushed. The other one has too much of a gap, so when my hand was like rubbing against the edges of it, it would sometimes like irritate my hand, so I had to put on a drawing glove. And by the way, this does not come with a drawing glove. I don't think that's a big deal, but still worth pointing out. The buttons up here have to be activated with this pen. And I'm not going to say why, but the problem that it causes is that if you have any buttons that you would normally press physically and then also interact is no longer possible because your button must be here. It must be pressed before you'll be able to use that, unless you're using some type of toggle system. So it's not that useful, and because they are not just soft buttons but have no tactility or clear separation, that you have to look at this pen tablet in order to press these with that pen. Okay, so not much else to say in terms of the overall design, but the pen I think is also another critical point. I've said this time in and time again, this is my most favorite pen from XP Pen, and that's simply because the overall design, a pure plastic build, I don't think should be under thought of. When you have these silicone grips that stretch out or get nasty and mucky or sticky, this has never happened with a regular pure plastic pen. So you're going to have this for the longest amount of time. And if you notice, I have two, this basically look like the exact same with the branding being slightly different. And that's because this pen that comes with the Deco 640 is an upgraded version of the traditional P01 pen that came with the Deco series in the first place, like the Deco Fun. So if you want, you can get the Deco Fun Small, comes in a smaller pricing, does not have the buttons on top. It's a bit of different design, but you kind of get the idea. This pen is very common, and what they did here, which I at least have to commend them for, is they did upgrade this pen. So it retains all the design parts that I like, where the button placement is ever so perfectly matching where a Wacom button would be, with that clear delineation between these two buttons, but the nib itself is the improvement. There is no longer a spring design, so you have much less nib deflection, much less wobble, and overall it performs very well. Now, it's not like the X3 Elite pen that has that super lightweight activation. You can't just like rest your pen on the surface and expect it to draw. However, it's still a better pen than the X3 Elite because this had an issue with the bevel here not being enough where this is, and so when you were tilting, sometimes the nib would just never have contact. The buttons here as well were just too high up, too short, and no clear delineation between the front and back, so there were times where like I'm not quite sure where or what I'm pushing. Whereas with, again, this was just an overall better design. I really like this pen, and I like it even more with this upgraded version, using effectively the new pen tech that they offer in all of their newer pen tablets. Now, let's talk about the cons. The only con I can see right now, other than the new pricing around $40 that you can get a bunch of cheap ones, is Android support. It says Android 10. I've tried older Android devices. Usually it's Android 6 and up. This is Android 10 and up. But this specifically is Android 10. It still works on these older Android devices. I'm not sure why they put 10. Maybe from a support perspective, they don't want to have support tickets open for older, Android versions for this newer pen tablet. It doesn't make any sense for them. It just causes more headaches specifically around Samsung devices. But the kicker here is that I have two Android phones. Both of them exhibit the same issue. They go in portrait mode. This is standard. However, the active area, instead of going to the full active area or slightly reduced version, it cuts it in half. you have an extremely small, skinny surface to draw on, and this specific aspect ratio does not match any phone I've ever seen on the market. When you draw a circle, it is a super squashed oval. It is unusable in that context. I can't write with this. I can't do anything. If I try to rotate it orientation to portrait mode, it takes like a little sliver of this up. And again, the aspect ratio does not match any phone on the market. I'm very, very complex of why this is Android in general, and it should probably just be limited to Android tablet. So here I have a Kindle Fire 7. This is their newer generation that actually can support a pen tablet via USB-C, and it works great. It worked very phenomenal. I was able to do a quick little sketch here of this. Now, obviously, it's not great. Working in a much smaller area for me is a bit more difficult. I'm doing a lot more zooming, that type of stuff, but it was a great experience. This is a 10 by 6, or sorry, 16 by 10 aspect ratio. This is also a 16 by 10 aspect ratio. It also matches almost perfectly with the dimensions of this pen tablet of the Android tablet. So everything was nearly a one-to-one. It just made that learning experience so much more easier. So if you're just getting into pen tablets and you're using this on a 7-inch or an 8-inch Android tablet, I think you'll be fine. But that's it. That's all I would say for Android support. Don't use this on larger pen tablets. Don't use our Android tablets. Don't use this on phones. I'm not sure of any phone right now on the market that correctly utilizes. If XP Pen wants to reach out, make any corrections, I will put them down in the description and comments. But as right now, it's a no-go for Android unless you have a 7 or 8-inch Android tablet. Okay. Beyond that, I can't say much else. I really, really liked this experience. Surface on this, I think it's pretty good. It's not super grippy. It is textured, but it's also not super slippery. And if you press down hard enough, you get enough resistance to be able to draw nice, steady lines. I can't really say much else other than this, that I think that you should wait if you're going to really want to buy this one specific one. If you cannot wait, here's one that I will recommend that you can look at. Their sister company, UG, offers the Q6. It's the same aspect ratio, but it fixes the Android issue where there's little notches here for all the different aspect ratios that Android operates on, closely operates on, and it has physical buttons that you can press while also interacting with this. The only downside of the Q6, other than the fact that this embedded USB-C cord is a bit wonky to take out and sticky, is the pen. And that's because the pen, first of all, has no buttons. It's super thin. Now, the buttons I don't really care about. The thin part some people will care about. You can toss in any pen grip on here, traditional pen grip, not specific to a pen tablet, and that's because the actual width of this is no different than any standard like ballpoint pen that you'd pick up on, I don't know, Walmart or something like that. So it's still a very good buy. You can find this Q6 currently on Amazon for $33. There's also a 20% coupon, which gets it down to like $25, $26 versus paying $40 for a half solution to an Android world. But that's only for Android. I think for everything else, it's fine. For photo editing, for 3D modeling stuff, this is going to be much better. Now, I will say that this got an upgraded firmware to get 16,000 levels of pressure. The pen performance is going to be nearly identical between these two. I think they're sharing the exact same pen tech. I did try the pens between them. They recognize and draw, but the pressure's messed up between them. So I don't know what they're doing specifically about that, but it is the closest comparison I can think about. If you're looking at this like, that's a little too expensive.